This is the only electronic music drum tutorial that you will ever need. This is a beginner's guide, and today we are covering a lot of topics from the world of drums. So by the end of this video you will know how to arrange, mix and create amazing and groovy drum loops that move the dance floor. I will explain it step by step. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright, let's start. We are gonna make a full drum loop in this video, step by step. First of all comes the drum selection, and when it comes to drum selection, it obviously depends a lot in which genre you're actually producing. Today I will show you some examples of drum patterns and mixing and shaping that you can find a lot in house and techno and trance productions. And I'm mainly using one-shots from Spice, but it doesn't matter where you get your sounds from. The important thing is how to use them. So the best way to start is with the kick. Who would have thought? And also a clap or a snare, for example, because those are the type of sounds that have a very precise place in drum patterns most of the time. We assume that we have a 4/4 time beat, so 4 hits per 1 bar. So most snares and claps in turn hit every other beat. This means on every 2 and on every 4. I have a clap here as an example, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 with the kick and 2 and 4 with the clap. And this is the foundation. So let's copy this one. So when you build your drum loop, I would recommend that you build towards the point where all of your drums gonna play together. In most cases, this would be the drop. So let's say we build towards the drop, because this way you can make sure that every sound good with all the other sounds. So everything sounds good together. This is the main purpose. So we have our foundation, but anyone can do that. Especially the hats and other additional drum elements like percussion make the beat outstanding and groovy. So let's focus on a rolling hat next. That consists of multiple hits of a closed hat. So I like to make this in the channel rack of FL Studio, since this is way easier and it also has a major benefit, which we discussed later in this video. So you find a closed hat that you like, you drag it and drop it into the channel rack. So hats normally play in between those beats of the kick. So in the channel rack you can see this very good. It's this part right here. These are the 4 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the first beat our kick attacks. So you can get very creative here in the channel rack with your hats, but you never go wrong by just doing this simple pattern here. So let's put our hats into the playlist. And now we have this. And to make things even more interesting, we add another hat, this time an open hat that has a much wider sound than the closed hats. So, and we place this open hat like this. So it's also playing between the kicks and doesn't overlap there. So this is our open hat. So it's much wider and open, and adds another layer to our hats. Nice start. And now we already have a full drum loop, a pretty basic and kind of boring one, but we have a full drum loop. And this is the best time to get even more creative and layer our sounds with even more drum elements. What I like to do, for example, is by finding a percussion loop that I like. So this time I'm not using a one-shot, but a loop. This is also a very interesting way to stay creative when you're using drum loops and then only take a tiny part of the full loop. In this example right here, we have this percussion loop. But I don't want to use everything. So I'm only using a tiny chunk of the whole loop. So this percussion right here has a lot of energy, as you can hear. And I would think it would be a nice layer for the hats or even the clap. Or like this. Or like this. Yeah, I think this one. And this is the beauty of taking parts of a full loop, because it already makes sense on its own. But you can easily enhance your own drum loop and layer your sounds and also get a different groove by just moving this piece that you're using back and forth however you need it. And you don't need to stick to only one version, just stay creative and try different ones throughout your drum loop. And just because it's called a pattern doesn't mean that it needs to be the same all the time. And it also shouldn't be the same all the time in your drum loop, just to keep things interesting. So we cannot cover every possible drum sound in this video, sadly, but here's another one, another thing that I like to add to my tracks and my drum loops to enhance them a lot. It's a ride. And they don't play all the time, that would be too much. I also put it into the channel rack and set all the beats one by one. Then we have something like this. And when we remember that we build towards the drop, they can add a lot of tension, especially in the second part of a full drum loop. So let's say our drums are playing, and then with the last 4 bars, the ride comes in and adds more tension. So we have our example drum loop right here, but in this way it is very rough. But we want to blend them all together so that they fit even better and sound better together. And this is where processing and mixing come into place. So first of all, we route every element to a separate mixer channel. So when I start mixing drums and also every other part of the song, I first reduce the volume of every element. And I mean every element. So this is not only for the drums, I reduce the volume of every element in the project when mixing. The reason is that we want to leave some space for the mastering at the very end of a track. And there are a lot of different opinions, how much or even if you should reduce the volume, but most producers definitely do. And I would recommend to start with -6 dB with most instruments in your track. And today, of course, we are focusing on the drums. So I'm reducing the kick by -6 dB. And also all the other elements. And now the clap and the percussion can be or should be even quieter. Especially our percussion has a very bold and rough sound. So we should make sure to make it even, reduce the volume even more. So something like -12 maybe, and the clap to -10. The ride also is has a lot less volume, so let's also put it to -12 for now. And this is the first step of mixing drums or mixing in general. So overall, where and how much this is done, this reducing the volume depends somewhat on the approach of each producer and of course also on the instrument. But remember, a good starting point is always -6 dB. And overall, we'll adjust it on the go. With the reduced volume, we have now this. So the second step is EQing. So we want to make sure that every part only plays on the frequencies they're intended to play. And for starters, this is that everything doesn't play on the low end except for the kick. This topic of EQing also could fill a whole video, so we are just scratching the surface today. So let's start with the closed head and put on an EQ. Most of the time when it comes to the closed head, I cut below 2000 or 2500. So something from here to here. But this also depends on the kind of closed head and the sound overall of this head. So, and then the open head, and the open head gets much more space. So I set the cut anywhere between 600 and 1200 hertz. And now when it comes to the heads, another reason why I drag and added the heads directly in the channel rack is the possibility to apply some LFO settings. So when we open our closed head right here, we have this LFO right here. And this means that I can shape the sound of the head, so when they start playing, or also how long they are playing. And most of the time the heads are even more effective when they are very tight. So this means I turn everything to 0 except for the decay time. And the decay determines the length of the sound and can make it really, really tight. And for the head, we want it to be really tight. So let's leave it anywhere here at like 10, 11, 12, 13%. And we also do the same with the open head, but the open head again gets much more space. So we open it, turn attack to 0, hold to 0, sustain, and also release to 0. And then adjust the decay time just by listening to it. So I think this is very good because we want to maintain the sound of the open head, and we would lose the signature sound of the open head if we make it too tight. So I think 30% is really good right here. Rolling head and open head together. Nice and groovy now. So let's move to the clap. And the clap is something special because it's the only element that gets a lot more mixing than the other elements. So I like to process them with a little bit of saturation with blood overdrive. So this means we're enhancing the harmonics with saturation. Then also for the clap, we cut the low end, but only the low end, nothing more. So here 250 to 300 hertz. And the clap is also the perfect instrument for some reverb. Narrow it down, increase the wetness. Something like this. So now let's move to the percussion. And this is the part that has the very least something like the one-size-fits-all formula, because it can be so different depending on the type of percussion. But for this example here, remember it's a very bold one. They are a bit too much for my personal taste, at least for this drum loop here. So this means that I cut the low and also the low mid frequencies. So here around 600 hertz. They are more subtle like this. We lose a lot of frequency information, so depending on the project, it could or should be different. But for now, let's keep the low end clean and cut it at everything under 600 Hertz. So, and last but not least, the right, where I cut the low and most of the mid frequencies. And when it comes to the right, we also can apply our little LFO trick from earlier. So attack to 0, hold to 0, sustain, and release to 0, and then move the decay however we need it. And now we already did a lot to shape the drum loop and blend all the elements together. So this was everything before the processing. And now everything with the processing. So from this point on, we already have a very good drum loop. And from this point on, I would always recommend that you don't overthink it. I know that's easy to say, but we can get lost very fast adjusting here and there, and maybe some hertz on the EQ less or more, or the volume, but it's good this way. It doesn't need to be perfect. As long as it's good enough. Alright, so now you should already have a good understanding of creating and also mixing drum loops. But there's one more thing to make all the separate elements to one full drum loop. It's the group processing in one mixer channel that is also called a bus channel. So I have this drum bus right here, and the rolling head, the open head, clap, percussion and ride all go in there. And now we process and mix them, all the drum elements together, and take them even one step further and make them really alive. So we basically throw all our elements into one channel and treat them as one. That's the short version. So what we can do now, for example, is to add some compression, some multiband compression with OTT to make the drums really come to life and adjust the depth to around 10%. That's more than enough. And you can also add a wave shaper to increase the tension. So this is the before. And this is the after. And that's it for this beginner drum guide for electronic music. Now you're well prepared when it comes to electronic music drums and mixing for most genres. But there's a lot more to cover on this topic, so if you want a pro or advanced guide like this, just let me know in the comments. And also, if you like this video, please give thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. I make a lot of videos on the production side of electronic music and also reaction content on the best brand new music, and I also release my own music, so please make sure to check it out, and your support is much appreciated. For example, I can recommend my song arrangement guide. And yeah, until then, have an amazing day or night, and see you soon.